This is Two Chicks Talkin Flicks, where we review movies. Love them or hate them, someone's got to do it. So enjoy the show. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is Two Chicks Talkin Flicks. Anything else that gets in the mix? And today I am joined by Rory from Podcaster Nation. Hello.
Well, hey, how you doing, Sarah?
I'm good. So I was recently on an episode of your podcast. Would you like to tell my listeners a little bit about yours?
I would love to. Yeah. The podcast you're talking about is the Podcaster Nation. It's growing like crazy. And the idea behind our podcast is to feature other podcasters like yourself and a whole bunch of other really cool folks and kind of give them a platform to share their story and tell everybody about what they do and put them on the other side of the mic, you know, kind of like you're doing to me right now, which is cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And yours is a podcast for podcasters and people who are maybe thinking about being a podcaster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what we call it. The Podcaster Nation so it's where all the podcasters can kind of come together and, help each other.
Yeah. I find that a lot of podcasters like to listen to podcasts about podcasting. So, it's a good podcast. People should check it out.
I was kind of counting on that when I built it. You're exactly right. I'm one of those too. I love to listen to other podcasters. I love to listen to stuff that's about podcasting because it's, what we all do and it's what I do for a living. And so I said, hey, I want to do something though where we're giving the platform to the actual people who are doing all the work. And it's worked out really, really well. I've got to meet really awesome people like you in the mix.
Oh, well, thank you.
Sure.
I know, I don't know who you host with, but I use Buzzsprout and they have their own podcast. And it's kind of helpful information. Have you ever listened to any of their episodes?
Yeah, I'm with Buzzsprout also. Oh, okay. And so I've listened to the Buzzsprout podcast. That helped me kind of get going when I was brand new too. Because they had like a little tutorial on, how to plug this in, how to stand next to the mic and, where to aim your voice and all this other fun stuff.
I know, right? We started out in the closet.
Me too.
And now I've upgraded to my bedroom. So I feel like I'm moving in the right direction.
You are, especially if your bedroom has carpet, then that definitely helps muffle some of the sound.
Unfortunately, it does not.
Yeah.
But
no way.
I do want to get one of those like pop filters or a stand for my microphone. I just haven't done that yet. But I do my best.
Oh, I hear you. And your podcast sounds great.
Well, thank you.
I use the old-fashioned screen things because it keeps me from, I move around a lot. Yeah. You may have noticed that because I've talked to you a couple times. And when I'm moving around all the time and drinking coffee and stuff, I bang my face into the microphone all the time. Yeah. And so I said, if you just put a screen up here, then it'll stop you from banging into the microphone with your face. So I'm like, well, sometimes you have to go with the practical stuff.
Exactly. I did buy those. It's like these little foam pieces that come really flat, and then you add them to water, and they puff up, and they're supposed to help with sound. But I felt like I really didn't need them. I bought them, and then I was like, I don't think I really need to do it, but maybe one day, I don't know. I thought about making like a box using them and put it over my microphone, and that could help. But
I love that though, because you're talking about just being creative, with muffling sound. And so many of us as podcasters have those little things that we do that are just sort of, Jimmy rigged off to the side that we're trying to use to muffle a sound or, help our T's and our S's not sound so rough. I started in a closet like you did, and I had, a blanket hung in front of me and a light behind me. And then I graduated to a separate room where I had a mattress against the wall in front of me to muffle the sound.
Oh.
And I finally got into, what I consider my studio, and I have like sound paneling on the walls and, a little better equipment, but that took 5 years to get to that point. So.
Yeah. So I, just to forewarn you, I have 2 dogs and they're in my room right now, and they are both on opposite sides of the bed underneath blankets fighting. So we may hear them at some point. I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what they're
I
doing.
appreciate the warning, so I know you're not growling at me if that happens. But no, it's no big deal. I mean, I don't edit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if a dog barks or, a cat crawls on somebody's head or somebody spills a drink, I mean, look, that's part of the podcast.
Exactly.
That's how it goes. Life happens.
Yeah, it looked like they were one long dog. I was just like, I looked behind me because I heard something, and I was like, "What is happening back there?" So whatever, they'll make noise at some point, I'm sure. All
Hey,
right.
whatever you got to do.
So, I asked you for a list of your favorite movies or least favorite. We haven't done some of those in a while. And you sent me a list, and I picked The Dead Poet Society. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I get that confused with School Ties all the time. Not that I get confused about the story. It's the people in the movie. Like, I'm like, wait, is this the one that has Robin Williams and all these people? Or is this the one that has Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and all these people? And I always kind of have to remember which one, because they're set in about the same time frame. And they're both at a boarding school in the Northeast. So, they're not similar, obviously, but kind of in this, like, if you just are looking at the poster, you'd be like, oh, that's a lot of movies about dudes. I don't, boys in
Sarah, it is
school.
so funny that you brought that up just like that. My wife and I were watching Dead Poet Society last night, just so I could refresh my memory for our conversation today, because it's been a little while since I've seen it. And my wife brought up School Ties.
See?
I mean, I almost fell over when you just said that. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, my wife did the same thing. She's like, wait a minute. What was the other one? It was just like this. School Ties. Oh my God.
And I know I've seen that one for sure.
Yeah, you're not alone.
I've seen it a lot of times, but this one, I had seen it in passing, but I don't think I ever watched the full movie. So, like, I knew the "Oh Captain, My Captain," and I knew that they stood on desks. And I knew the general premise, but I don't think I've ever seen it. So it was a new.
Well, wow. So this was the first time you ever really saw the movie.
Yeah.
And well, then what? I mean, you're the pro. What did you think?
Well, we'll get to my feelings on it, but I was just kind of like, oh, hey, my first thought was, hey, that's Fred from that 70s show.
The dad, right?
Yeah, and as much as he's a jerk on that 70s show, he's a lovable jerk. This one, he's just an asshole. So,
well, yeah, he plays that intense role pretty well.
Yes, he does. So what is your like favorite scene? If someone was to ask you like, what's your favorite part of this whole movie? What would you say?
I mean, it's tough because everybody wants to pick the last scene, where, he's walking out and the students are all standing there basically saying, hey, we didn't have any choice but to sell you out, and we're so sorry, and, all that. So that is, I think, what everybody would expect. My favorite scene is where he's working with, oh God, why can't I think of his name? I just watched the movie. Ethan Hawke, right? Yeah, his character. He's talking to his character, Todd, right?
Yeah, Todd Anderson.
I think his character. Yeah, there you go. He's working with him at the front of the room, and he's got this shyness about him. He doesn't want to speak out. You can tell he's been sort of overshadowed his whole life, and he's never really come out of his shell at all. Yeah. But he has all these thoughts and all these things he wants to express, and he can't. And so Keating gets that about him, and he stands him up at the front of the class, and he starts doing a free association with him, like, hey, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? What are you thinking? And then he even shuts his eyes and puts his hand over his eyes and like moves around with him, like, come on, get this out. Yeah. And the kid actually gets to connect with what's inside of him for the first time ever in his life. And it's like the whole class went from laughing at him to just being in awe and just going, oh my God, what just happened? So that's my favorite scene in the movie.
I do like that scene. I actually quite liked the scene with Todd and Neil when he's outside and he's like, "Today's my birthday," and his parents got him the desk set, and it's the second time they've gotten him the desk set, and then Neil throws it in the water, and it's just like, how how can you be so oblivious to your son and send him something you've already sent him before? Like, do you not care about your kid at all? Just
And that was part of the prevailing message, too, of all those guys that kind of had that in common, that their parents were just disconnected from them.
Yeah.
And none of them had really had a chance to express themselves or talk about what they wanted in their lives. They were all living a path that was set for them by their parents.
Well, and my sister brought up a good point. If his brothers all went to that school, why wasn't he there since he was a kid?
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did he just get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems weird.
That's pretty good. I don't know. They don't address that either, I don't think.
No, they don't.
Like why he's coming in new.
And the thing I thought about, I'm sure your wife probably had the same thought. So in School Ties, which I always want to say School of Ties, but it is not. Brendan Fraser's character, he's Jewish, and he doesn't want to tell anybody that he's Jewish because he's at a Catholic boys' boarding school, which this is a Catholic school as well, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And some of those kids, I was like, some of them are Jewish, and I find it really funny that they're not hiding it. They're not talking about it. They're pretending not to be Jewish, but they're 100%. I'm pretty sure some of them are Jewish in real life. And I was like, that's really interesting that they're at this Catholic school when it's set in the same time. And, just kind of funny.
That's true. I think the only thing I can say to that, because you're right, the only thing I can say to that is the point of the movie and School Ties really is centered around the fact that he's Jewish, the way that the Jewish people were being persecuted, especially in that area and in that time, and that he had to hide it, not just because of, getting into the school, but also because of, just life.
Yeah.
When they find out he's a Jew, he's Jewish, and they start calling him, a Jew and all that stuff, they actually refer to him as a dirty Jew on, in the program, and as a big derogatory thing towards him. Whereas that's a big part of the movie is him trying to get past that. When they think he's, normal and not Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Then all that matters are his grades and his attitude and his football playing talent and all these other things. And as soon as they find out that he's Jewish, all that other stuff doesn't matter anymore. He's not a good guy.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of that movie. And Dead Poet Society, that's just not part of the script or the story,
Yeah. So I want to take a weird trip down Charlie's way. So spoiler alert, if anybody has not seen Dead Poet Society, I'm going to give a trigger warning for those who need it. This will be talking about suicide, and if you need to fast forward, we'll probably bring it up again, but just trigger warning. So Neil kills himself. We'll discuss that later. But if I knew that something happened like that, I just didn't know which character. Obviously, Neil probably stands out the most as to someone who might have reasons, if there's reasons to do that. But I thought Charlie seems like a pretty good character that might do that as well. He went on quite the ride in this movie to me, and I was like, I could see him like falling off a building or a bridge because he was on some kind of weird psychedelic drug or something, by the way he was acting in this movie towards the latter half. What are your thoughts on Charlie?
On Nwanda?
Yeah, Nwanda.
Right. No, I can see where you're coming from on that 100%. Because Charlie absolutely could have gone over the deep end. He was the one that was perfectly willing to, bring in smoking and drinking and even girls into the cave with him, so I can see that. With Neil, it was that internal struggle.
Yeah.
He was someone who was never going to buck authority publicly. He was perfectly willing to do it in private, like the Dead Poet Society, secret society. We'll hide in a cave. Nobody knows what we're doing. And then I can express myself. But every chance he got to express himself publicly or outwardly, even at the end when his father says, "Okay, Neil, how do you feel?" When they're in the study right before he takes his own life, he stops and he looks him right in the eye and he goes, "Neil, how do you feel? Tell me how you feel." And Neil can't. And he stops and he shrinks and he realizes, I'm never going to be able to do this. My dad just asked me to tell him how I feel and I can't. I think it's actually at that moment that he makes the decision that he makes, because I think he realizes he's completely broken.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets this like smile on his face, and I was like, "Oh, that's scary."
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's the whole. I'm at peace with my decision, and the only way I have out is this, and I know that now.
Yeah,
I think that was a big defining moment for that. Whereas, Charlie is kind of like, I don't think he really cared that he got expelled at the end. Yeah. And even when he gets in trouble the first time, because, he pretends there's a phone call coming from God.
Yeah.
Saying that he interrupts the assembly and says, "I'm sorry, it's for you. It's God. He thinks we should allow girls at well."
Yeah.
And so, even then, he has no problem speaking out against authority. And when the headmaster brings him into his study, for the paddling punishment, he says, "Do you think you're the first person to ever try to get kicked out of here?" And that kind of gives you the idea that the headmaster sort of already supposes that Charlie is trying to get kicked out of the school. So it also doesn't seem like that's the first time that's ever happened.
Right.
So that's my take on Charlie. I think you're right. But I think because he's so comfortable with, putting himself out there, that's why Neil was more apt to be the one that would make that decision to take his life.
Well, the second person I thought that might be the one who took his life was Todd. So, I was just like, oh, okay, well, it could go either way. It was a coin flip in that room of which roommate might do that. Because they both seem to have kind of a looked over existence, maybe. Well, okay, I guess not, because Neil, his whole thing is his parents are putting all their hopes and aspirations on this kid, while Todd is just getting left in the dust because his other brothers are so great and so perfect.
That's true. Yeah. I can see where he might have been a candidate for that also. But he's just withdrawn. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything about him that really wants to rebel and speak out. He's being held back. With Neil, he's dying to speak out, but just can't.
Yeah.
So I still think Neil was probably the guy that was going to go, unfortunately, because he had so much inner turmoil. But I would actually think Todd was more of a candidate than Charlie.
Yeah.
Because, when you're outward like that and you're expressing yourself and you really don't care about the consequences like Charlie does, you like your life. Yeah. You're just trying to enjoy it more.
That's why I thought he might have died via like drug overdose or,
I see.
Falling off a building from being too high, whatever. Yeah,
he definitely could have fit that mold of he flew too high and oops. And
the 70s are really going to be a hard time for Charlie. That's all I'm saying. 60s, 70s. He's definitely going to be a wild flower child.
Yeah, for sure.
So Neil, I want his dad to know that he did become a doctor. He's a doctor of oncology on the show House. So he did make it.
Well, I mean, that matters. Okay. There you
go. But like, he has straight A's. Why can't he just do the damn play? Like, it made him happy. I'm not a parent, so I don't know how I would parent, but I'm pretty sure I would let my kid be in a stupid play, especially if they had straight A's.
It's funny because we always, especially when you're into a movie, you put yourself in the position of the character and you're like, why don't they just say this? Why don't they just do this? I mean, the parents would understand. And you're like, I could do that argument better than they could, right?
Yeah.
And, something that occurred to me even last night, I found myself saying the same things in my head, like, this guy's a former military guy. He's very strict. If Neil simply said, hey, I made a commitment. Now, if you're going to be upset with me about the commitment I made and disobeying it, that's fine. But now that I've made this commitment, you can't expect me to go back on this commitment I made and let all these other people down.
Exactly.
And I think his dad would have probably had to say, okay, that's fine, because it's not the right thing to do to break a commitment like that you made to all these other people, even if, he doesn't like what he's doing. So that was kind of out of character for the dad, I thought.
Yeah.
The whole idea that he said, you're out of the play right now, period, when it was supposed to be the next day.
Yeah. The one thing that I think would have helped with this whole play situation is if the play wasn't weird. Like if it was like a standard, I don't know what kind of play the dad would have been fine with, but that seemed too woo-woo and frou-frou for him.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, he was playing Puck.
Yeah,
in the Shakespearean play, so there is that.
Oh, was it a 12th Night? Is that the movie?
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream. That's what he was doing. I didn't get that from that. I should have. Because I did have that feeling, but I've never actually seen the play. I've only seen this movie called Get Over It, where they do a musical of that movie or that play. And so I don't really know the play itself.
Oh, you never had to read Shakespeare and stuff, huh?
I did, but I don't remember reading that.
I'm one of the few people that I know that actually likes Shakespeare. So I was an English major for quite a while before I realized there was no money in it. Mm-hmm. And so I've read a lot of that stuff. Midsummer Night's Dream is the name of the play.
Yeah.
And the main character in the play is Puck, who's a mischievous, nymph, and kind of controls the situation by manipulation behind the scenes. And so he's like always popping in and out.
Yeah.
Turns a comedy into a tragedy because he manipulates things and, that type of thing. So there's a lot of meaning to that too, that, he's behind the scenes doing all kinds of stuff, working freely for what he wants, but he can't come out and be a main character like that. He's got to even play the character that's, dipping in and out behind the scenes in secret.
Yeah. They actually explained that in the movie, through song. They explain exactly what's happening in the play. It's pretty funny. I highly recommend the movie Get Over It. It has Kirsten Dunst, Ben Foster, Shane West, Martin Short, Mila Kunis.
That's the movie of Midsummer Night's Dream?
It's called Get Over It. And it's about a high school kids. And one of them is trying to win back his girlfriend by joining the school play. And Martin Short is the director of the school play. And he turns Midsummer Night's Dream into a musical. It's really funny. It's a really good movie. Cisco's in it. The thong song singer. Colin Hanks is in it. So
cool.
It's a very good movie. I like it.
Anywho. Well, I believe you. I haven't seen that one. That's all. But yeah.
Let's see here. So I had this thought when they were talking at the beginning of the movie, and they were talking about because he wanted to be on the school paper, and they were just talking about artists and stuff. And all I could think is, okay, you would not have advances in technology without thinkers, without artists. You don't study poetry without having poets who are artists, who are thinkers. You don't study artists, because they were talking about Rodin and all these other artists and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for them to be artists and to have a whole class dedicated to talk about artists, but it's not okay to be an artist yourself, which seems really stupid. Where would we be? We wouldn't have the wheel. We wouldn't have computers. We wouldn't have all the things that we have today without artists, scientists, thinkers dreamers. I think that's important to curriculum. And they're trying to take that away from all these men who they're trying to turn boys into men, but they're limiting them. What are your thoughts? That's what I thought of watching them.
I agree with you completely. You have to have all that in society. And that's a huge, storyline of the movie also is the conformity. He even does that exercise out in the yard, where they're all walking differently, and then eventually they all fall in line and start clapping.
Yeah.
To, demonstrate the dangers of conformity. So, I mean, everything that Keating is teaching is against what the school is trying to do to them. Mm-hmm. Because he's trying to maintain one little piece of their humanity without them losing all of it by just becoming the next corporate, entity that walks out the door. Mm-hmm. And at the time that the movie came out, that was a big theme in society, was that everybody was following the same path. Everybody was, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. You work for 40 years, you retire, and you have a few years left, and you die.
Yeah.
there was a small movement against that thinking back then when that movie came out, and it was one of the reasons why it struck such a chord. But the problem is that you can disagree with it and you can rebel against it and everything else, but then when you're done having your own little dream about it, you come back to the real world and go, well, I guess I'm going back to class now.
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit of an escape. That movie coming out today would have had a whole different undertone.
Yeah.
Because of the conversations that are out there today about, the Matrix and all this other kind of thing.
It's funny. Today we would have a teacher who'd be more of a hard ass and be like, no, you need to learn math so you can use it in the real world.
Right. So, he'd be the revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you need to learn to read. None of these kids know how to read these days. Yeah,
exactly. This is important. I don't need to read. I have my computer. No, you still have to read.
Or write in cursive. At the very end of the movie, he opens the book and it has handwritten in cursive. And I actually asked my sister, I don't know what that says. But to be fair, it was far away and she has better eyesight than me. And then after we paused it and read it, then it zoomed in and it was closer. So I could read it. But at first I was like, I do not know what that says. And I was like, oh crap. Have I forgotten how to read cursive?
Are you really that young that you don't know how to read cursive?
I'm old enough to remember writing in cursive in school. So, but to be fair, mine was kind of like a cursive, not cursive handwriting. I still write that like that to this day. It's kind of like someone speaking Spanglish. Half of my letters are in cursive, half of them are not.
You're
that's
one
how
of
I
those.
take notes. Yeah. If I'm taking notes real quick, that's what it looks like.
Got it. And that only looks that way because you're going fast, right? Because all your letters are coming together and it's easier than picking the pen up and doing a different movement for a different letter. Yeah, you're just doing that for expediency.
Probably. Well, and I think I just got used to it, just. So.
Yeah, you brought up a really interesting point a minute ago in terms of how that movie would be today.
Yeah.
And you're talking about cursive and how that used to be taught and now it's just completely forgotten.
Yeah.
And you almost could do that same movie today because it's a teacher who's teaching about humanity.
Yeah.
About how much independent thought matters and not just following everybody on social media.
Yeah.
How much communication through writing poetry with your own hand actually would be meaningful to somebody as opposed to a text or an email or an instant message, right? Or something else, because we're completely homogenized on the internet now.
Yeah.
And so there's no interpersonal communication. So you might actually be able to do the exact same type of movie now, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, it really is. Because I remember in grade school learning how to address a letter, write a letter, where to put a stamp on an envelope, all of that
right.
stuff. Ask a kid today, they have no idea what you're talking about. They have no idea. And, those activities and lessons seem stupid if you think about it, but it's actually stuff that people need just to live life. That's why they can't get rid of cursive, because people don't know how to sign their name on legal documents because they don't know how to do cursive. And you can't print your name on a legal document,
In theory, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it's important. It seems silly, but it's important.
Well, they're used to just, pushing a button next to the green arrow on the PDF.
Yeah. Yeah. But, when you go to buy a house, you can't do that. You actually have to sign
That's
it.
true. Old school.
Yes. So one thing I thought was really cool about this movie, I went and, not every movie I review do I go and look up stuff about the movie or the director, but this one in particular I did. And they actually filmed the movie from the beginning of the movie to the end, so it was continuous. So they didn't just do the end here and then the middle here and go back and forth. They did it from start to finish so they could show the growth of friendship and listening to Keating and all of that, and naturally show the progression, which I thought was a cool way to do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a bunch of really young actors in that, the more they worked together, the more they would become actual friends on the set. Yeah. And the more they were with Robin Williams, they would grow closer to him. That's interesting. That is an interesting fact. And I didn't know that. Wow. And
they had them all stay together. So they're all sleeping in the same room. I'm guessing they had a big cot or something. I don't know.
And so that makes all the interaction between them that much more natural.
Yeah. And then
that's really funny.
He didn't allow any modern slang, so they weren't able to. You'd be like, "What's up, bro?" Whatever was in 1989, but they had to have no modern slang. And so I was like, that really puts you in the mindset of being in the 50s and just being kids at that time.
Wow, I didn't know any of that, but that's neat. That's probably why it's such an effective movie, because every part of it seems just very real.
Yeah, yeah.
None of it seems incredibly put on. Even the little bit of relationship between Keating and the history teacher.
Yes.
At the end there. Even that has a whole lot of feeling to it.
Yeah.
Even though there were hardly any lines between them.
I liked their little weird friendship. They both saw each other as equals when they were doing their little poems back and forth. And I liked that.
Yeah, that was cool. The exchange at the table where they're quoting.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, who's that?" Keating.
Keating.
I also saw that so I saw one thing that said Robin Williams was going through a divorce during the filming of this movie, so he wasn't jovial and having fun in between takes. However, I saw another story that said Robin Williams kept trying to make Ethan Hawke laugh because he was committed to being, I guess he's a method actor, and he kept trying to make him laugh, and he was getting mad because he's like, I'm trying to stay in character, and he wouldn't break, and that was pissing off Robin Williams. So then Ethan Hawke thought that Robin hated him, and that was not the case. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That's an interesting dynamic too. The way that their relationship played out in the film.
Yeah.
That's funny because that's what Keating was trying to do with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, wow. Oh, that's life imitating art.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I didn't hear any of that stuff. That's neat. Yeah. That's cool information to have.
And they did the take where Todd is, after they find out Neil has passed, they're out in the snow. That had to be done in one take, and he nailed it.
That was powerful.
Yeah.
That really was. With those kids that way, yeah, that was really something. Yeah. That's that just what you just told me about the background of the movie. I didn't know that, but that explains a lot. about how they got all that emotion into it. Because that's one of the things that gets me about the movie is that it's just so authentic.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm watching some big portrayal. I feel like I'm just in a classroom with these guys watching everything happen. And it's that's neat. Good. Well, that's why you're the movie chick, right?
Right.
Talking flicks, because
and that's kind of
because you look stuff up and do research.
Well, sometimes there is plenty of times that I am pulling stuff out of my ass and have no idea if it's true or not. So,
oh, good deal.
Don't quote me on everything.
It was funny that you picked this movie too. I showed my wife the list, and she's like, "Well, honey, she had to pick that movie because otherwise it was going to be like Rocky or Rambo." I mean, come on.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah, I didn't give you a whole lot of choices outside of that stuff, so.
I was like, oh, okay, let's do that one. And then I did look up to see if the movies were available. So I always like to find ones that, are still at least available somewhere, somehow.
Well, where'd you end up finding
it? Amazon. Had to pay $3.99.
Had to rent it.
Yeah.
Right. I've just basically given myself up to the fact that anytime I want to watch a movie, it's on Amazon and it's available for, $5 or less.
Right.
If you want to watch it bad enough to pay for it, just go to Amazon.
Yeah. It's pretty much true. But like so I've never seen, actually, I don't want to say never. I'm pretty sure I've seen the movie, but I haven't seen it in decades. White Squall.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that in forever either, but I did see it once.
So it also has a big cast of guys all around the same ages, very similar to this movie and School Ties. And they all had like a bonding experience where they had to, they had nearly died shooting this one part of the movie. And they like all lived together. They all went on this big trip together, and that bonds them, and it makes the movie feel like they're actual friends, And that's what I do like about this movie, that they all seem like they're friends. And I'm sure if the guy wasn't allowing them to use modern slang, they probably weren't allowed to like be off on their own, doing their own thing. They probably had to like hang out together. And that's what builds that friendship. And that's what you take away from this movie is, boys being boys, having fun, learning something that they didn't think they were going to learn from an exciting teacher. What are your thoughts?
I was just actually thinking about the actor who played Cameron.
Uh-huh.
The redheaded kid. I was just thinking that if everything you just told me is true, and I believe that it is, then that poor kid basically had everybody acting like they didn't like him for the entire filming. Because he really wasn't part of the group. He just sort of got put in there because he was smart and he fit the study group, but he wasn't really a buddy of theirs.
No, and he's I was like, you can never trust a unattractive redhead. Attractive redheads are different. But in those kind of movies with that kind of haircut, have you ever seen a redhead that didn't be a bully or a jerk or
No, so I guess that's typecasting. That's definitely typecasting.
Yeah. Toy Story. He looks like he's the kid from Toy Story. And that
the kid next door
was a menace.
Right.
I'm not saying it's true for all redheads. I like redheads. Sometimes my hair comes out red. So I'm not saying this about all redheads, but ones that look like him with that certain just look about them, can never trust him in a movie.
Well, I just want to make sure that any redheads that are out there listening to this right now, that they all know that, you're the one who said this. So when they start sending the hate mail, send it to your show, not mine.
I would actually really love that. I think that could be a very viral moment if all the redheads are just like throwing hate my way. I'm okay with that.
That'd be great.
No,
the redhead police come after you and you're like, hey, wait a minute.
It's just the ones that look like the kid from Toy Story. That's all I'm saying. If you look
I
like
got to give
that
it to
kid
you.
and you're in a movie, you're probably a villain. Just
Yeah. I mean, in terms of typecasting, you're right. Yeah, and you pulled out the perfect character. The kid from Toy Story is perfect.
yeah.
You know, he was just evil all the way
Uh-huh.
through. So I got to give you that.
So speaking of Cameron, okay, I understand that he does not stand up at the pivotal part at the end of the movie. But why are those other whores just sitting there? Like, why wouldn't they have just gotten up? They all seem kind of like lemmings to me. But there's like a whole group of them still sitting.
That's a good question. I think maybe that was to show that they weren't following anymore. You know what I mean? If everybody just stood up and followed, then it's kind of going against the principle of it. You know what I mean? Cameron had made his decision, drew his line in the sand. These other guys were not willing to risk themselves for it. And these guys who did actually stand up on their desks, and they were breaking out against the norm and thinking for themselves and making a statement, which is all Keating ever wanted for him in the first place.
Exactly.
So if everybody in the room does it, then it's conformity again, because there's guys who are only doing it because so many other guys did it.
Yeah.
Did I get you? Did I stump you on that one?
No. One thing in this movie that I was annoyed by was the kid with the recorder. Why?
The what?
The kid with the recorder. He's in a couple scenes. It's just I hear the recorder and like I'm just like, ugh.
Oh, the instrument recorder.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
When you said that, I was like, there was a tape recorder in this thing? I don't remember seeing that.
No.
But,
The instrument. The recorder.
Okay. Is that like PTSD from, middle school for you or something when you were forced to play it?
Yeah, I actually liked the recorder and I actually still have one, but just that kid playing it, it was like nails on a chalkboard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Charlie, I think it was Charlie, played the saxophone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I too was a saxophone player, and at first I was like, "Oh, is he really playing?" I was like, "Yes, he's definitely really playing that saxophone because he was doing the things that we would all do when we're like warming up to just kind of like mess around." So I was like, "No, that's real." And he's wearing a neck strap, which I have to tell you, in a lot of movies, when they have them playing the saxophone, either A, they don't have a reed, which you can't play without the reed, and two, they don't have a neck strap. And I'm like, you cannot play that saxophone because there are some certain keys that you need to be able to just use with your like 2 fingers, and you can't hold up a saxophone with 2 fingers. So I like authenticity. Authenticity. Oh, I like things to be authentic. Yes, thank you.
There you go. Yeah, no, you got it. Well, I didn't realize you played the saxophone. That's pretty cool. I mean, I've interviewed you twice, and I don't think that came up, but that's awesome to hear.
My
and
marching
I'm glad
band
that they passed your
prowls
test.
didn't come out. That's weird.
Hey, I'm glad they passed your test. That's cool. It did seem like he was playing it. I wasn't looking for the reed, but they did make the reference about how he grew up playing the clarinet.
Yes.
And I've always known that about those instruments, that like if you can play one, you can play the other type of thing.
No, that is not true.
So that's what I've always been told, even by a guy that I knew played the sax. He said, "Yeah, I can play the clarinet too, because it's basically the same thing."
Yeah. So the clarinet, the saxophone, he was playing the alto. So the alto sax is different than the like soprano sax. So like clarinet music, they are in a different octave than saxophone. And so they have more finger positions that are above the staff. If I'm remembering this correctly, people are not going to fact check me, but they can if they want. So like my friend, he played the clarinet, but he also could play the bari sax, and he also played the soprano because I think those are the same. But I played the alto and I couldn't read their music at all. I had no idea what their finger positions were or how to play those notes. So theirs look like hieroglyphics to me. My music was always different. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I think the soprano saxophone, like I said, is more similar to the clarinet. So if that's what he was playing, maybe. But in this instance, the kid was playing an alto and not a soprano.
Ah, okay. Well, I appreciate the lesson.
No
I will never
problem.
say that again, that those are the same instruments.
I mean, you can play one instrument, you probably can play any of them. I can't read music. I can read the notes, but I can't read like the time. So I'm not really a good person to ask, to be honest with you. I play by ear.
Okay.
So
Well, given how authentic the rest of the movie was with the way they did all the behind the scenes stuff, which I've just now found out from you, it doesn't surprise me that they actually played the saxophone in that scene.
right. Oh,
Yeah, because that was probably really important.
and speaking of music, so at the very beginning, the very first thing we hear are the bagpipes. Now I'm not a Scotsman. Well, actually, that's not true. We do have Scottish and Irish in our DNA, but I have never played the bagpipes. But is there only one bagpipe song?
No.
Because I feel like movies only know the do 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 do.
I have an entire side of my family that is, Scotch Irish,
Yeah.
so on, and at all of the weddings on that side of the family, my uncle was a fire chief, in the Bronx, and a big Irishman,
Yeah.
So they have the bagpipes playing at all of their weddings.
Yeah.
And yes, it's always the same song.
Yeah.
And that one last night was one of the two that you hear all the time on every show. But there are all sorts of bagpipe songs. I actually have a CD, and it's called Celtic Bagpipes. And there's 15 different songs on that, and it's just bagpipes.
And you can tell when one song ends and the next one begins?
Yes, you can. There's a pause, there's like a chorus and everything,
Okay. Yeah, because
you have to get past it, though.
On movies, they only act like there's just one bagpipe song, and that's the only bagpipe song that everybody knows. And I'm like,
there's actually two or three that are pretty prominent in the movies. That's one of the most
definitely
prominent marches. Yeah,
definitely the most popular.
That's good. I'm sure a lot of people feel like you do. Like you hear bagpipes, and that's just how they sound.
Well, it's either
that's the song. That's it.
Or I think of Ross on Friends playing Celebration.
on his keyboard?
No, with the bagpipes.
Oh gosh, that's right. I forgot he played the bagpipes that one time.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're right.
So I just had to bring that out there.
Man, from Dead Poet Society to Friends references about the bagpipes. You cover a lot of ground, lady.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So I made this thought, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. They act like him teaching them poetry is him molesting all of their children. Like,
ouch.
Neil dies, and then they're like, oh, we have to get rid of this teacher because he is touching all these children. Like, it had nothing to do with the teacher at all. It's the horrible, horrible dad. And I'm just like, I have no words. I just, it is insane.
Well, and isn't that kind of how it happens in real life, though?
Teachers do get blamed for everything. That is correct.
Well, even if you take it with a teacher, standpoint of it, the people who are really to blame are never going to take the blame.
True.
Whether you make synonymous this school with, the government, or you make this school with society, or this school with the corporation, no matter what it is, the rule of law is what it is. And if something goes wrong somewhere else, it's never their fault.
Yeah.
It's always going to be somebody else's fault. you know? And so, like, you know, somebody gets hurt working in a factory. It's not because the owner of the company didn't bother paying for the safety stuff. It's because the manager on duty making $18 an hour, who happened to be on duty that day, didn't prevent this guy from getting killed. You know what I mean? And it's like, he couldn't have. It wasn't his fault, but he's the one who's going to get punished for it. So it's a standard story in terms of making the statement of that. And, you know, in the end, he really wasn't being punished for teaching him poetry. Yeah. He was being punished because he was encouraging subversion of the rules.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything that's not our rules. You can't do something that we aren't telling you can do. If you go against our way, you're automatically guilty, no matter what. And so, of course, that's what resulted in the kid's death, right? Is what they make everybody say.
Yeah. They act like it was a cult, like it was some kind of weird poetry cult. Like,
right. No, and he started the cult, right? And he encouraged it, the whole bit.
He's just letting them be free thinkers, and not even free thinkers, just thinking in a different way. And it's like,
well, it's against the rules. Not allowed. There's a ton of social commentary in this movie.
Yeah.
Even from back then. But that is probably more so now, to be honest, than it even was back in, you know, at the time that this movie was made. But
yeah. Is there any other parts of this movie that stand out to you?
I think the one other part that I really did like was when he brought them out the first time to combine, you know, your excelling at sports and thinking, you know, with your mind and reciting poetry and letting it all out. And he has them read the passage that's on the paper out loud with energy and with expression, and then kick the ball as far as you can. And he's drawing a real connection there to, you know, athletics and academics as ways of expressing yourself, and how they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can actually be, you know, very similar. They can come from the same thing. They can exist in the same person, and they can have the same importance.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a coach in me, because, you know, I mean, when you're an English major and you've been a coach for 27 years, it's, you know, you might pick that out of the movie a little bit. But
what do you coach?
I have coached football, basketball, track and field, mostly field, and probably 5 or 6 other things throughout the years. But I hung it up when my boys graduated.
What was your favorite sport to coach?
My favorite sport to coach back when my boys were playing, it was baseball.
Oh, I'm a huge baseball fan.
Yeah, they were both really, really good too. So it was kind of fun watching my own kids blow it up.
Oh, that's fun. We did not know that they were playing soccer at first. I was like, are they playing rugby? Because I've never seen a brown soccer ball. And then I was like, oh no, they're kicking it. Oh, they're playing soccer. And then we're like, was soccer around back then? And then we had to, we assumed soccer was around. Just, I didn't think it was here in the States, because it's, you know, like a world sport. We went on a weird deep dive while we were watching this movie, thinking about soccer.
Soccer's a very old sport.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that old. I mean, because it was called football, obviously, in other parts of the world, it's a big thing. But in the States specifically, I thought it was like a newer sport for like just kids usually played soccer.
Yeah, it's actually been one of the first sports ever let into elementary schools.
Oh, interesting.
Because it costs almost nothing.
That's true. Just a net and a ball.
You don't even need the net. All you have to do is draw a line in the dirt, and if it gets past the line, then it's a goal.
Good point.
Yeah, so I mean, it was very cheap and easy to bring into sports, and the opportunity for injury was really low back then.
You were a teacher. This is one of your favorite movies. Did you ever like teach like this, or did you ever have like a segment in your class, a project or anything that was letting them think like this? Or Anything like that?
That's really funny that you asked me that question. I actually was never a teacher.
Oh.
I've just been a coach.
Oh, I thought you said you taught English. Oh, you studied English.
I was an English major.
Yeah, never mind.
I studied English, yeah.
I just assumed.
I was going to be a teacher, and it's just funny because a lot of people, when they hear that I've been a coach for a long time, they automatically connect that to being a teacher because so many coaches are teachers also. So you're not alone.
Well,
it
and
happens a lot.
You give off a teachery vibe. I can feel.
Oh, well, thank you. I do actually teach lots of classes now.
Yeah.
So I teach podcasting actually. So, I guess technically I am a teacher, right?
Yeah.
But no, that's funny. But I used, my wife and I were laughing watching it last night. I used so much from this movie in my coaching. The barbaric yawp from the movie is something that all of my teams, whether it was, baseball, football, my track guys before they went and threw the shot put or the discus, you get them all together and you basically go, all right, you guys ready for our barbaric yawp? And I would say it just like that. And they knew exactly what I was talking about because I taught it every single season.
Yeah.
And they would just get together in a big, group, huddle up real tight and just scream at the top of their lungs for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And that was their barbaric yawp. They loved it. It made everybody else look at us like we were nuts. I think it intimidated some teams, to be honest. When our dugout erupted in the biggest scream they ever heard, they were like, "What was that?"
Yeah.
And my kids loved it, and it gets them all pumped right before they walk out to start playing.
Yeah.
And it's also something they do together. So I used that a lot.
I like that. I was a bowler in high school, and when I was like a junior, we got a new crop of this group of freshman girls who had been bowling together for a few years on like a peewee team. And they were really into cheering. They cheered no matter what happened. You get a gutter ball, they cheered. You get a strike, they cheered. And so when they were on our team and I was bowling with them, they would cheer, and it started to like pump us up, right? So we would be so excited, we would like lose our minds, and people were getting super intimidated because they'd be like, "What is happening over there?" And there was one time we did Baker bowling, which is basically you have 5 people, they bowl frames 1 through 5, and then you start over, you bowl 6 through 10, and each person gets 2 frames. And we didn't miss anything. If we didn't get a strike, we got a spare. And we were losing our minds, and people are just like, "What is happening?" And it bumped us all up, and we were just like, "Yeah," and going crazy. I got like one of the hardest spares to pick up, and we lost it. Absolutely lost it. I had 2 pins over here, 1 pin over there. I like bowled my ball and it hit and the pin went and ricocheted and knocked the other pin. We went insane. So
nice.
it does, those chants, those cheers, those, just letting yourself go and feel it, be in the moment. It really does help.
That's a cool story. I mean, I would imagine that would be even more noticeable in a closed bowling alley like that, where everything echoes too. It's like, I would imagine that would be very noticeable and very cool.
Yeah. And very intimidating.
Well, that's why we did it.
Exactly.
And that's where we got the name from. So yeah, I mean, that and some of the other, principles and things. I mean, I've definitely incorporated that movie into a lot of coaching stuff over the years.
I like it. So is there anything else about this movie that stands out, or?
Honestly, I could probably talk about every single part of it with you all day. So, I mean, I think that probably covers the serious standout parts, though. You know what I mean? It's, the idea as a whole. What stood out to me last night was how applicable the movie was, even in today's world.
Yeah. Because
it's been a while since I saw it, and you think you're watching an older movie that it was applicable back then. And then you realize how much it's standing out now, and you go, man, really? Our world has changed so much, but then not changed at all in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary, in that way to go, wow, this is still a revolutionary movie even today.
Yeah, like I really feel like it would be more about put the phone down, communicate with people, talk to your neighbor, all those kind of things. Like in my neighborhood, I don't know a single neighbor, not one person.
Oh, wow.
But like other people back in the day, like you would have block parties and you knew your neighbors and all of that. But no, I barely see kids outside playing.
Right. And everybody on the block, had kids or, whatever, and they were usually the same age. And you had all the same types of people all living together around the same age group too, back then. So it was, that's why they had neighborhoods.
Exactly.
Yeah. Younger folks with new families lived over here. Older folks, with grown kids lived over here. Folks who didn't have kids, they lived over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really kind of funny back then, but nowadays, we're all so scattered and drawn out and isolated that, you're right. The movie could be just based on that.
Yeah. People don't even open their door anymore. It's like, who's at the Ring camera?
Right. I'm not even opening it. I'm just watching you through a video. Yeah. Sorry. Don't know you. Get off my doorstep.
All right. So, we like to rate these movies at a 1 out of 10, and usually we'll pick something from the movie. So let's just say you thought it was 5 out of 10 Camerons. That's what you would pick. So what would you rate this movie?
I'm not sure I understand the Cameron example. Like that's my reason for giving it a 5, you mean?
Yeah, like if you gave it a 5, that would be. But if you just pick something from the movie that you really like and then add a what's your rating?
I would give this one. I'd give this movie an 8.5.
Ooh.
Because I think that's high because I think there are some flaws to the movie, of course. Yeah. Kind of like why Todd just show up?
Right.
It's not even addressed. That's a great point. But and some of the severity, and that kind of thing. But by the same token, it's still applicable today.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, because it still matters, and because you could still watch this movie right now in a theater and walk out feeling like you got something from it, and I think it makes it timeless. And so I give it an 8.5. All
right, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Desk sets. I enjoyed the movie. I do think there's a lot of stuff you can learn from it. People just need to just be different. Be yourself, but be different. Don't go with the crowd. Stop being a lemming. Do your own thing.
Nice.
But listen to me. Oh.
Nice. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Be an individual just like everybody else.
Right on.
That was something a girl said one day in junior high, and it has stuck with me. Is be an individual just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else.
It's like, wait, what? We're all then we're all being the same. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah. Well, thank you so much, Roy, for being on. This was great.
Oh, I had a great time. I love talking movies, and I've wanted to be on the other end of this with you for a while because you're the pro. So I figure if I can answer your questions, I must really like the movie.
Right. I feel bad that I didn't mention Robin Williams and his John Wayne impersonation was spot on.
Yeah, he had his little stand-up routine there where he did John Wayne and a couple other folks. But
yeah, I didn't recognize everybody, but I definitely recognized John Wayne, and I was like, "Oh, that's very good, Robin."
That wasn't bad.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I hope everybody goes and listens to, especially my episode on his podcast. the
Oh, yeah.
Podcaster Nation. And how often do you put out episodes?
We are posting every day, Monday through Friday now.
Oh, wow.
Yep, 5 times a week.
Dang. Do you have lozenges for your sore throat that you're going to eventually get from talking so much?
I did 60 interviews last week alone.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a new record.
Yikes. Well, guys, you have plenty of opportunities to listen. Where can they find your podcast?
On all the platforms. We're on Spotify, iTunes, you name it. We're also on YouTube. And the way to find us is to make sure that you get the name correct, and that's The Podcaster Nation. So as long as you get the THE, because we are the nation of podcasters.
Yeah.
And we're not podcast nation, we're podcaster nation. Because we're all about the podcaster doing the work behind the mic.
Did I not say it correctly? I'm pretty sure I did.
No, you did. I'm just pointing it out to everybody. You were perfect.
I was like, oh no. Have I not been
no, you were
saying
perfect.
Right?
You were perfect.
Oh,
absolutely. That's fine. I'm just letting everybody know that's how you find us, because if you type that in, you will find us every time.
Yes. It's a gold microphone with a black background. So
right on.
Easy to find. Well, thank you so much for being on. I had a blast.
Me too. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. And until next time, everybody, toodles. This episode was produced by Two Chicks Talkin Flicks. Music was produced by Michael Girvani. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to be a part of the show, have a movie suggestion, or just want to give us some love, you can email us at twochickstalkinflicks@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Toodles.